Okay, let's practice some conditional rendering. So here your challenge is given a stateless functional component, just this app component down here. I want you to follow whatever steps it takes to add some state to it. I want you to then have that state keep track of whether the user is logged in or logged out. Then you should have a button that will change that state. In other words, a button that logs them out if they're logged in or log them in if they're logged out. And there should be some text on the page that says whether they're logged in or whether they're logged out. If you want an extra challenge, make it so that the button will actually display log in if they're not logged in and log out if they are logged in. So as usual, give this your very best shot, and we'll give you a few hints if you need them in just a few seconds. But in the meantime, pause the video and try it out. Okay, really quick, some additional hints that you might need, because this is actually putting together quite a few of the lessons that we've talked about recently. So one thing is, in order to add state, you'll need this to be a class-based component. And part of that is you'll need to add a constructor method to that class-based component. For keeping track of whether the user is logged in or not, you could use a Boolean is logged in. Should be a Boolean, either true or false. Adding a button that logs the user out will require an event listener, which would be your on-click, probably. And then both the extra challenge and challenge part number 4 would require some conditional rendering. So if you're feeling a little bit stuck, feel free to pause it again and try it out now that you have some hints as to how to complete each step. And we'll go through this together in just a few seconds. Okay, let's try this out. So we need to make our component into a class-based component because, well, actually for a couple reasons. One is we want to keep track of state, which means we are required to have a class-based component. But we're also going to be writing an event listener, and technically I could just write another function that handles that, but personally I prefer to have a class-based component and put my event handlers inside of the class itself. Okay, so to change this to a class-based component, we need to change function to class. Get rid of our parentheses. We'll extends react.component. My return needs to be inside of a render method. We'll move it there. And to add state to it, we know we need a constructor method. Always call super first. Add a property called this.state, which is an object. We'll initialize it with is logged in of true. Or actually, let's start false. Okay, so that is steps number 1 and 2. Now we need to add a button that will change is logged in to true or false. And so there's a couple things we can do. One is inside this div, let's get rid of that and we'll add a button. And for now, I'll just say log in. And we'll play with this a little bit later with the extra challenge. Now I need to add an event listener to this so that the button being clicked actually does something. So I'll add an onClick equals, I'll call this .handle click. So anytime this button is clicked, it will call this class's method called handleClick. Well, that doesn't exist yet, so let's create it. So right here, I'll add a handleClick. And I'm probably going to run into a binding error here, so I might as well bind this now. Say this.handleClick equals this.handleClick.bind this. Before I get too far, sometimes I like to have little sanity checks along the way. I'm just going to put a console log here. Now we can check if I click the button, if it will console log I'm working. I refresh the page and I get this login button. And when I click it, okay, our console log is working just fine. And that's awesome. Now the thing I want handleClick to do is change false to true or true to false, depending on which one it currently is. And anytime I'm going to change state, I need to run this .set state. And remember, there's two different ways that I can set state, two different things I can provide to the set state method. Take a second to think of what those two things are and which one is going to be most useful in this case. So I can either provide set state, just a brand new version of state, and it will smartly combine and replace the current version of state. But since in this case I actually need to know whether it currently is logged in, or rather if logged in is false or true, I need to instead provide a function that has the previous state passed to it so that I can use that previous state to determine what the new state should be. My function is going to return the object literal where is logged in. The value of is logged in is the opposite of whatever it used to be. This is a really concise way to change a Boolean from false to true or true to false. Technically, you could also do an if-else statement that says if prev state.isLoggedIn is true, then return an object where isLoggedIn is false, else return an object where isLoggedIn is true. But this way I just say, just give me the opposite of whatever it used to be. Now we don't currently have a really great way to see what the current version of state.isLoggedIn is, but I can do this extra challenge right now and make the button say log in or logged out depending upon what the current version of state is. So I might do that right here in the render, and the first thing that comes to mind is just to have some button text saved in a variable. So I can initialize this variable and then I can say it equals, I'll use a ternary to determine whether it says log in or log out. So if this state is logged in is true, I want the button text to be log out. If they're logged out already, I want it to say log in. And then instead of hard coding a login here, I will put button text. Hopefully this will actually show us whether they're logged in or out. On the button it says log in, I click it, and then it says log out. So I know under the hood my state is actually changing. Awesome. Okay. Part 4, to display text that says logged in or logged out, depending on the current version of state, is actually pretty straightforward. It's about the same as what we already have. And so I might say let display text equal essentially what we have here, but instead of log out and log in, it would be logged out, or sorry, logged in, because if they're logged in, then I want it to display logged in, otherwise out. Now that I have this display text, I could put maybe an H1 here. That uses the display text. Okay, so the button says log in because it's a command to log in, and it says I'm currently logged out. Then when I click it, it says click this button to log out because you are currently logged in. And that's it for this practice. Spend as much time as you need to really understand exactly what's going on. And when you're ready, let's move on.